It's time to take control of the narrative and delete racial inequality in the workplace.
Hello everyone, my name is Pilar Nalwimba. I'm a host and content producer, most recently working for the reality tea on BBC Radio 1. Welcome to Reboot with Super BAMEs, an initiative that allows us to hear from inspiring ethnic minorities making a mark in the corporate world. We are sharing these stories to help control the narrative, alter perceptions and biases, and delete racial inequality in the workplace. Today, it is my honor to interview a super BAME, the chair and co-founder of the Black British Business Awards, Melanie Eusebe. Hello, Melanie.
Hello.
How are you today? Looking beautiful.
Thank you so much. I'm feeling okay. Middle of lockdown, working at my happiness every single day, but feeling good.
Oh, that's the main thing, right? Just to keep the spirits up during this sad time. So Mel, given your remarkable achievements, can you please bring us in on your journey, who you are and what has made you?
That is such a big, dirty question. So I was thinking about it. I'm trying to just develop the highlights. So you can hear my accent. It's a Canadian accent. I was born in North London, but raised in Canada, and I moved back here 15 years ago. And so, of course, that had an impact in regards to just feeling slightly kind of excluded from the groups that I had a heavy Cockney accent or I have this Canadian accent. Also, I'm tall. I have a contralto voice, and that means I was bullied at school. And I think between the two of those experiences, they really contributed towards me. I don't ever want someone to feel the way that I did as a little girl. I felt excluded and I felt ugly because of some of the features that are associated with my race and my ethnicity. And, with lots of years of therapy and also just the healing nature of working on the Black British Business Awards, then I've been able to come into my own. But I know that at the heart of this, at the heart of what I do, it's for people to not feel excluded and for people to have the opportunity to shine and be their best. I've been in the UK now for about 16 years now. So it was when I started off my corporate career. I worked in the bank in Canada, and then I came over to work in IBM and then EY, and now I'm a director at Accenture.
Melanie, what inherent practices exist in society today that reinforce racism or systemic discrimination in the workplace, ultimately hindering ethnic minority progression?
I think so. That's a huge question, and I think that we're no longer at the point, in the UK at least, where people are being lynched in the street, where we have segregated schools across kind of racial lines. What we're dealing with right now are micro behaviors, micro aggressions, that it's almost like a death by paper cuts. It's almost a, am I crazy or did this just happen kind of effect, where it's quite hard to pinpoint how people are systemically excluded and in some form or fashion. So for example, we do have quite a strong sense of kind of socioeconomic class in this country that's quite hard to break through in regards to being a meritocracy. And even in regards to our close associations with postcodes and parts of the cities that we like to live in regards to, if we're talking about work particularly, then if we're looking at how do we make decisions, there's an ethnicity pay gap as well. How do we make decisions around who gets to do what kinds of work, who gets promoted as well, who gets access to the networks, how we network for work, how do we measure people's performance at work as well. The large bands that we have for pay. So, in Canada, we have slightly tighter bands, but that means that there's less allowance for people to kind of veer in between. And that means that there's less allowance for people to say, I'm going to pay women and ethnic minorities less than white men. So unfortunately, institutional racism is showing up in all kinds of practices that are almost micro practices or almost micro decisions. And what we have to start doing is stop looking at kind of trying to just mentor away or sponsor away inequality in the workforce, what we need to start doing is looking at the culture around, and are we creating a culture as a workplace that fosters inclusion, that fosters the progression of ethnic minorities? Because right now, arguably, no company in the FTSE 350 does it well. There's none. Please do tell me one if I've gotten that wrong, but I know I haven't gotten wrong because I study it every day. I was like, you could tell me, but there's not. Like, there is a clear pipeline kind of blockage right around the age of 28 to 35. People are graduating out of great schools with great degrees. They get into the workforce and then we lose them.
So can we just break down these microaggressions that you've mentioned? So you talked about pay gap. And I know that as a coach, you have a Money Moves program where you educate people on money, specifically women. I know that the Women of the World Festival, you also gave multiple talks on asking for a pay rise. And I would love to know, what is your advice for people that might be watching this? How would they address a pay gap issue, especially if they believe that their counterparts are getting paid more simply based on the color of their skin?
And that's such a tough one. And with the pay gap, this is where you need to have allies and colleagues within your organization to be able to check your understanding. You know, there is an ethnicity pay gap, certainly. That's almost well kind of known and acknowledged in most organizations, privately, if not publicly. And so if you sense that if a person senses that they are being underpaid, I'll tell you what happened when I did it. How about that? I'll just tell you a story. I didn't realize, I was doing recruitment. That's what it was. I was doing recruitment and I was going around to the schools and I was saying, hey, come and work for this firm, come and work for this firm. And then I realized what they were hiring, I realized the hiring salaries. And I was like, wait a minute. If they're hired at that level and they get paid, that means I'm getting paid. And so I had to go and ask my friend, I had to ask a friend secretly. I was like, I know we don't talk about this in this country, but can you let me know, a friend at work, can you let me know how much people get paid? And then I went to headhunters and recruiters. And I was like, hey, people like me working in this role, this kind of firm, what would I get on the market? And then it was double. It was double. And so I had to go back to my company and say, what up? So I know that this guy who's a level lower than me is getting paid more. I know that you are recruiting for roles in the market at this level. So I had to do my research to make sure I had all of my ducks in a row. And I also had to practice. So I think if you sense it, then please try to get an ally in the firm that you can speak to that will be able to affirm what you think, because you just kind of coming off and saying it won't work.
You're in a very unique position where you work in the corporate industry, but also you're an entrepreneur. So what 2 or 3 things should people within corporate companies be doing, and also as entrepreneurs?
So I think that in terms of corporates actually, it's linked to entrepreneurs, to be fair. So I think the answers will be the same, but we do have to look at inclusion and diversity with a newer, fresher lens. So typically we would look at diversity and inclusion as an organization saying, how do I attract Black people? How do I attract Asian people? How do I retain them? How do I promote them? Now there is a higher calling and a higher standard. It's about a company looking at its whole supply chain. There is increased scrutiny and accountability on behalf of the company in several different spheres where we never used to look at it that deep. So for example, if you look at, okay, fine, we're looking at our workforce, but actually I'm encouraging companies, I'm working with companies right now at Accenture to say, wait, what is our supply chain saying? So this is so you see that in the States, they've just launched the 15% project. That means companies like Sephora are dedicating 15% of their shop floor to Black entrepreneurs. So that's that's diversity in a way we've never thought about it before. We're talking about GSK doing their clinical trials for GlaxoSmithKline are making sure that they have inclusive and representative participants of the clinical trials. It's making sure that when we're developing AI, that we're not developing it from the white man's gaze. That AI is being developed from the gaze of or intersectional, multicultural gaze, so that we are reflecting the interests. Because all of a sudden, when we start to, so that's from a supply chain perspective, like that's actually in product development. And then we flip it and we say, wait a minute, how are we engaging with a diverse customer base? Are we selling to a diverse customer base? So you're seeing organizations recognizing that the disposable income of Black and Asian people, and they're saying, wait a minute, we got to get them involved. How are we reflecting them in our sales material? How are we reflecting them in regards to our customer services, our processes? Meaning that, do we understand their challenges, and are we trying to build a product or a service that meets their particular needs rather than excluding them? This is great.
Thank you, Melanie, for sharing your personal experience and perspective today. As a Black woman, it is so important to me to listen, connect, and learn from other Black women like yourselves that are essentially not only leading the path for those of us that follow behind you, but also leaving these tips that we can take into our day-to-day working lives and also bring forward the other people behind us. So thank you so much, Melanie.
Thank you for interviewing me. I appreciate it.
It's time to reboot with superhero Black, Asian, and minority ethnic professionals redefining the corporate world.